is indeed an eye opener for many persons. And unfortunately, it is something which is so almost a commonplace. The challenges where the family member goes away and they are expecting things to be going along merrily, and then you get this information. And so, you ask yourself, do remittances really adequately replace this kind of displacement in families where the nurturer has migrated? And, I'm not sure whether, Marvett, what do you think about that? Is that sufficient? Because this kind of dislocation in a family, and you talk to them on the phone and you think everything is fine, and then you hear police come to the yard. Is this sufficient for us to say we can take that risk?
Well, the studies have shown that the economic benefits from migrations are great and families do benefit. However, when we look at the impact it has on the psychological well-being of children and those who are left behind, we realize that they do not balance out, meaning the money they get really does not balance out the psychological impact it has on the children, especially when it's negative.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the hardest things to appreciate. And of course, they say that happens knowing that children living abroad, for instance, are achieving life goals. Yes, that's so important. But the role of nurturers as well, that got me, because roles are changing since the high unemployment with the women. But the women are the ones now who become more the breadwinners, and the men are the nurturers. And sometimes we don't do well as it, do we? What are the studies saying about in terms of the impact of migration, the gender roles in society?
Well, we know that women tend to be the larger section of persons who migrate.
Yeah.
And in our Jamaican situation where we have women heading household, we find it is the breadwinner who is also migrating. When we have men in the household, especially in the studies that have been done in Nigeria and Australia,
Yes.
we find that has helped to mitigate the loss of the female household head. But in our Jamaican context, and even in Nigeria and in Australia, we find that while the male can reinforce the disciplinary aspect of the family, the nurturing aspect is always left unattended because men usually do not do as well as women in providing nurture for the children.
Yes.
And also too, the men who are left behind, when they would have formed a part of that family, they also need nurturing, which is usually provided by the females. So when you have the females migrating, both the men and the children are at risk for losing that nurturing support. And when you lose this nurturing support, there are psychological and emotional negative impacts that need to be mitigated to help the children benefit not only economically but psychologically and emotionally.
That last point you made a while ago is really telling, men need nurturing too. That is so true. And so it is not a situation where we just swap roles just like that. It's much more and much deeper than meets the eye.
Right, and if we take it a little bit further, when the girls in the family are forced to take on female nurturing roles, not only of themselves but of their siblings, and we would like to also talk about the negative impact that it has when the child, the girl, also provides that nurturing support for the male figure in the family, and hence the abuse that we often encounter when a female leaves the family, the adult female leaves the family, and the older girl takes on not just the domestic chores but also the caregiving and nurturing support that her mother usually gives.
Yes.
When the negatively impacts the girl, when it can end up in sexual abuse or incest.
Absolutely. And also, with the girl, for instance, putting her life on hold, she can't engage. Sometimes, and it's a perverse situation, admittedly, but let's she has the attentions of a young man, say, that young man is seen as an interloper in the home, yes, because of what has happened and the diverse nature of the developments that have taken place.
Yes, sure.
I have to ask you, Andrea, in terms of, at the Ministry of Labour, in terms of manpower services, labour.
Yes.
And what impact would you perceive and would you want to share with our listeners?
Well, in many cases, the bond with family, the family relationships suffer
Okay.
You'll find that bond that is supposed to be there between the children and their parents,
Yeah.
the migrant, that breaks down.
Okay.
And
Yes.
with the girls and the grandmother and the extended family providing that nurturing role and taking on those domestic chores, you may find, a strain in the relationships.
Yes.
People don't get along so much with each other anymore.
Yes.
And of course, some of the young men tend to get into, situations which are bad for the family.
Yes.
They tend to follow their peers, they tend to follow, getting involved in bad company. A number of negative issues can arise.
Okay.
But it's very important to maintain that bond, that emotional contact.
Yes.
The children have to know that you have not abandoned them.
Yes.
You may be sending money, but there's also you need to communicate. You need to talk to them regularly.
So
It's not just about sending money.
Yes.
And sometimes the money doesn't even come as it should.
Yes.
Which means that sometimes they can't even attend school regularly.
Yes. But you make a very valuable point there in terms of communication.
Very
and of course, there
important.
are avenues of communication. That communication ought not to be one that is negative, because you can have a situation with a complaint about what I'm not getting and what is not happening. But you need some possible reinforcing things
Positive
that are
for the
understood.
family.
All right. So, looking now at in terms of the benefit to families, how we can enhance that, and how can the negative impact of migration be mitigated? Andrea, Marvett, sorry, how would you put forward a possible way to deal with the situation that we heard a while ago in the audio clip? How can we mitigate that? Here's a young man, problems, police coming to him. How do we prevent that from happening? Or if it does happen, how do we reduce the impact of that?
Well, here we talk about involvement in pre-departure counseling and practical preparation.
Okay.
You would have known in advance that you're likely to migrate, because in many instances, if you migrate on a formal program, then you would have had time.
True.
If you don't, then that
Yes.
is when the problem usually arises, when somebody would, as we say, run off.
Yes.
And then they formalize the agreement.
Yes.
No, we are asking families to engage in preparing their family for the eventuality of the mother or father leaving. And by this we mean not just the grandparent or the person with whom you're leaving the child with. We need to have formal counseling preparation so that the adjustment of the child with the new caregiver is solidified, and the problems are, we foresee the problems and we try to iron out so many of those. So it's not just the caregiver. We talk about going to school. Let the school know from now on, so and so will be the person you contact if there is any issue with my child. We want to make sure that the child's education is also prepared for.
Yes.
We want to look at different ways that you can maintain the connection, such as use the internet, use WhatsApp, have face-to-face time with your child.
Yes.
And we know in some situation the phone and the teenager and the young child does not go together. So we need to work out how is that going to be managed between the caregiver and the child. Is there going to be special times each week that the child is allowed the phone, the child is allowed to have FaceTime with his or her parent, and so on.
I suppose it's important to Marvett, because what it does is that you want to ensure that the child does not develop a sense of abandonment.
That's correct.
So that's important. So sometimes as adults, we say, no, well, it's for a better life. And so we're sort of in this kind of zone that says, it's for the better for everybody. It's a sacrifice you all have to make. But you don't prepare, do you?
Right.
Think we'll send the money back and you get the money, you go to wherever, you get the money, all right, everything is fine. But it's much more than that.
It's much more than that.
Yeah.
Remember, your child still need to be parented. But many of them, their socialization is not complete
Yes.
to fit them into a role of taking care of themselves. So we need to make sure that parents understand the developmental needs of the children they're leaving behind.
Yes.
And that these needs are taken care of. And these are not just economic needs. They're needs for emotional and psychological development that needs to be done if this child is going to mature into adulthood as a stable and emotionally competent adult.
Yes. There was an advertisement, one name a financial institution, And this is a mother who went away, and she would send the money, and then the mother would come back for graduation for the first time, and seeing the child seeing the mother after so many years. And that was almost a tearjerker for me to say, wow, what has transpired in all of that.
those years.
So counseling, and of course with the technologies, that can help considerably in managing this process and to really see your child grow with your influence. Then I want you to ask something else though. Sometimes we make assumptions, like with the grandparents. When you have grandparents, so everything is fine. That's not necessarily so, is it? Because grandparents may be away from the home in a sense. They're not there for the day-to-day upbringing of the child. And then you transpose this
That is
onto
why
the grandparents.
sometimes they're not even well. They're not well enough to take care of the teenagers, especially the boys.
Yes.
So sometimes that puts a heavy strain on them as well to do so.
Good point.
As you heard from the clip,
Yes.
the grandmother wasn't able to manage Adam.
Yes.
You know,
So the Adam who is a little baby is one thing, but the Adam now
Yes.
going through his critical time,
Right.
can a grandparent really manage that?
Right. So those are some of the issues.
For migration, I don't look at it in the same way at all, because there's so many things that can have an impact, and we need to find a way to deal with that. But in terms of the management of the money, for instance, you can send money all the while, but what happens to that? You have to ensure that the child benefits or the family benefits from that they don't squander it. And sometimes they see the money coming in, and they think there's always coming in like that. So how do you prepare families for that, to manage the money that is going to come?
Well, at the Ministry of Labour, attached to our overseas employment program is a family services unit.
Really?
Yes, where the ministry provides welfare support to families for the families of our migrant workers.
Right. Yeah.
So when the worker leaves, the ministry visits the families.
Oh, good. I didn't know this.
Just to do an assessment
Absolutely. Yeah.
of the economic and social situation of the family, and to see how the family is coping.
So it's a situation you get a farm worker and they're gone.
No.
Oh.
We have to look and ensure that everything is okay with the family.
I'm
Make sure that communication is taking place, that bond is being maintained, and that the support is coming from the migrant worker as well.
Yes.
And that the children are going to school.
Yes.
That the family is being supported. Sometimes not enough money is coming in, so we have to refer the family to other programs,
Yes.
both within and outside of the ministry, so that they can get additional support.
Well, I wish you could go on, but time really has come to an end. It's such a topic which, of course, requires a kind of focus and information, because too many of us believe we have gotten a break one way or the other, money going to come, and everything's going to be all right. And that's just half of the story, isn't it? I want to thank you both, Mrs. Andrea Miller-Stennett and Mrs. Marvett Feare-Sterling, for sharing with us in terms of migration.
It was our pleasure.
My pleasure.
And